He married my cousin while I was still planning our wedding. So I vanished. No tears, no scene. A year later I returned not to beg, but to exhibit my art. Standing beside me, the man my ex could never become. And when they saw me glowing, loved, untouchable, that's when the real silence began. Some betrayals don't arrive like thunder. Some are mailed to you in a cream-colored envelope, sealed with gold foil and wrapped in silence. The morning it all shattered, I was sipping burnt coffee and battling an email avalanche at my kitchen counter when the doorbell rang. Amazon probably. I'd ordered a blackout curtain to block out the optimism coming from across the street. My neighbor had just gotten engaged, and every time I looked out the window I saw fairy lights and pink balloons. Disgusting. But it wasn't Amazon. It was worse. A wedding invitation. Thick. Heavy. Designed to make you feel poor. It had calligraphy so delicate it felt like an insult. And the names? Camila Rose Bennett. And Dean Michael Walters. I dropped the envelope like it had burned me. Dean. My Dean. 5 years of my life, Dean. I don't believe in marriage, Dean. Now suddenly a wedding enthusiast. Marrying my cousin? I didn't cry. I didn't scream. I sat very still. And then I laughed. A sharp, humorless sound. The kind that scrapes against your own ribs on the way out. Because of course it was Camila. If ambition and entitlement had a baby wrapped in a cashmere shawl, it would be her. I called my mother. Mom, I said, trying to keep my voice steady, did you know Dean and Camila are getting married? Pause. Then, you weren't supposed to see that yet. But there it was. The truth served lukewarm. Right. Was I supposed to find out when they posted honeymoon pics from the Maldives? She sighed. Maddie, don't be dramatic. I'm not being dramatic. I'm being dumped. Retroactively. You two weren't even engaged. Because he said he didn't believe in marriage. Another pause. Then, Camila's different. Different. As in shinier. Softer. Easier to manipulate. Do me a favor, I said, and never call me Maddie again. Then I hung up. The betrayal didn't feel like fire. Felt like air leaving a room. Sudden. Cold. Inescapable. I opened my closet, pulled out the last framed photo I had of Dean and me, and threw it straight into the trash. It landed on top of a half-eaten bagel and a lipstick I'd once worn for his mother's charity gala. Fitting. I didn't call Dean. Didn't text him. Didn't block him either. I wanted him to look at my name and wonder why it stayed quiet. The family group chat lit up that night. Aunt Grace, so thrilled to finally welcome Dean into the family. Ring sparkles. Camila, I hope everyone's free next month. Can't wait to celebrate with all of you. Smiling face with hearts. My father, a beautiful match. So proud. No one mentioned me. Not one person. As if I'd been edited out of the narrative like a typo. I wanted to scream. But I didn't. Instead, I went to my laptop, opened a blank search bar and typed. One-way ticket. Rome. Then I clicked book. If they wanted to pretend I didn't exist, fine. I'd make it real. I resigned from my job the next morning. My boss Daniel blinked. Wait, you're quitting? But you're due for a promotion. I'm also due for a mental breakdown, I said with a smile. But this feels like a better plan. He didn't argue. I didn't cry. Instead, I scrolled through the wedding website. As they had one. CamilaandDeanForever.com. I gagged. There were photos of them on a beach. Camila in white, Dean in beige linen like a knockoff Pinterest groom. Their About Us section was particularly violent. Dean and Camila met at a family brunch and instantly connected. Connected? He connected with my cousin over Eggs Benedict? Then I put on the headphones and watched a horror film. Because if they wanted a world without me in it, I was happy to grant their wish. And this time, they wouldn't get the version of me that waited. That begged. That watched from the sidelines. They were done. Now it was my turn. The problem with families is that they always assume you'll forgive them. They rely on your silence. On your history. On the fact that you never make a scene. And I didn't. Not even when they invited me to brunch. 2 days after I received the wedding invitation I wasn't supposed to see. Apparently, betrayal is best served with scrambled eggs and overpriced mimosas. I said yes, of course. Because if they wanted to play pretend, I'd bring my best performance. But I didn't go to make peace. I went to watch them squirm. The restaurant was an obnoxious little place called the Fig and Feather. All gold accents and fake plants. The kind of place you went to get judged for ordering carbs. My Aunt Grace wore her signature pearls and a smile so tight I thought her cheeks might crack. "Madison, sweetheart," she chirped. "You look, well." Translation: "You look pale, tired, and slightly unhinged, but we're not going to address that." "Do I?" I said, sliding into the chair. "It's the betrayal glow. Very in this season." My father cleared his throat. Camila wasn't there yet. They said she was getting her nails fixed. Maybe her conscience chipped too. "We know this is a little surprising," Aunt Grace began. "But love works in mysterious ways." "That's what you're going with?" I asked. "Not we're sorry, or maybe we should have had a conversation before the wedding invites were embossed?" My father leaned forward. "Madison, this doesn't have to be a war." I sipped my black coffee. "Oh, I'm not fighting. You're mistaking calm for surrender." "Common mistake." Aunt Grace smiled tightly. "Camila just connected with Dean. He was so lost after your breakup." "Breakup? Was that before or after we filed taxes together last year?" I said coolly. "Or when we signed a lease for a 2-bedroom because he said one day we'd need a nursery?" They fell silent. I leaned back in my chair. "You didn't just let him betray me. You handed him the knife." Camila finally arrived, wearing a white dress and a gold necklace I had once given her for her birthday. She hugged me like nothing had happened. "Madison," she said brightly. "So glad you could come." I stared at her hand, specifically the ring. My ring. Not literally but close. The exact design I'd once shown Dean on Pinterest. Oval cut. Thin band. Hidden halo. He remembered, and gave it to her. I didn't flinch. Didn't blink. "You look happy," I said, smiling politely. She did the thing where she pretended to blush and look down like she was on a reality dating show. "It all happened so fast," she cooed. I tilted my head. So did the plague. They spent the rest of brunch talking at me. About flower arrangements. About venues. About how Dean really grew up since we parted ways. I nodded. Smiled. Even clapped once. Then I stood. "I won't be attending the wedding," I said quietly. Aunt Grace dropped her fork. "Madison, be reasonable." "I'm being generous," I said. "You're lucky I'm not showing up in a red dress and reading old text messages into a microphone." Camila paled. "It's not what you think." "Actually," I said, grabbing my coat, "it's exactly what I think. You just hoped I'd be too polite to say it." I pulled out my phone. "I leave for Italy tomorrow." And just before I walked out, I looked at Dean's mother, who had silently sat through the entire meal like she was auditioning for sainthood. "Tell your son he doesn't need to call me. Or text. Or send some sad recycled apology a week before the wedding." "He won't," she said softly. I paused. "Oh," I smiled. "So he already did." I didn't cry in the Uber. I ordered gelato, sat on my fire escape, and watched the sky turn gold like it owed me something. One message lit up my phone. "Dean, Madison, please, just talk to me once." I let it sit there. Unread. Unanswered. Because the thing no one teaches you about heartbreak is this. Sometimes, closure isn't a conversation. It's a flight number. Venice doesn't care who you used to be. It doesn't ask why you're alone or if your suitcase is full of regrets. It just wraps you in mist and lets you disappear. When I stepped off the train, the air smelled like old stone, brine, and rain that hadn't arrived yet. My phone was still off. My past still blocked. And my heart still a little numb, but at least it was mine again. The apartment I rented was tiny and charmingly inconvenient. The windows stuck, the water took 5 minutes to turn warm, and the walls echoed like they missed people. Perfect. It sat above a sleepy bookstore with a bell that rang every time someone entered. I liked that sound. It reminded me that time was still passing, even if I wasn't chasing it anymore. On my third day I found the gallery. It wasn't in a tourist square or behind some marble museum. It was tucked between a bakery and a crumbling flower shop, its wooden sign faded and hand-painted. Galleria di Luz Perduta, Gallery of Lost Light. I stood there too long, maybe hoping the name was a metaphor for my life. Inside it smelled like linseed oil and dust. And hope. That's where I met Rosa. She was in her 60s with wild silver curls and the posture of someone who once danced ballet but now preferred wine. "You're not a tourist," she said, squinting at me. I'm not much of anything, I replied. She handed me a rag. Good. Then you'll have time to help clean. Just like that, I had a job. Rosa didn't ask questions. She just gave orders. Paint that shelf white, but not like an American. Slow. Careful. With heartbreak. Or, move these canvases. And don't look at them too long, they'll stare back. She fed me tomatoes from her garden and advice I didn't ask for. Women like you come here all the time, she said one afternoon. With their sad eyes and ruined futures. Want to know the secret. What? They don't need healing. They need rewriting. I asked her what she meant. She pointed to an empty canvas. You were someone's story. Now you write your own. I started painting again. At first just to fill time. But then the colors began to feel like me. Not who I used to be. Not who Dean remembered. Just me. I painted storm clouds that didn't cry. Windows that stayed shut. Women with closed eyes and open hands. Each stroke was a sentence I didn't have the words to say back home. Nina came next. She was American, loud, and unapologetically nosy. A failed novelist turned translator who lived upstairs. You've got that, I ran away from something dramatic face, she said over coffee. Divorce? Death? Ugly haircut. Betrayal, I said. She lit up. Oh. Cousin or best friend? Cousin. Classic. Nina became my chaos in the calm, offering daily commentary, bad advice, and excellent wine. You don't need revenge, she said one night laying on my floor. You need a glow-up so violent they think you've joined a cult. I snorted. That's the plan. One rainy Thursday, Rosa handed me a thick envelope. There's a man who wants to buy something, she said, but he only deals in person. The name on the envelope was Luca Moretti. He owns half the galleries in Italy, Rosa explained. He's charming. And dangerous. Like espresso at midnight. I didn't ask questions. Not yet. I just stared at the name and thought, perfect. Another man who collects beautiful things and leaves fingerprints all over them. So I agreed to meet him. Because maybe this time the story wouldn't end the same way. That night I posted my first photo on Instagram in months. A picture of the canals at sunset. No caption. Just light. Camila saw it. So did Dean. Nina cackled. He's probably zooming in on the reflection trying to see if there's a man in the background. I raised my glass. Let him look. Because this time, there was no one to beg. No one to wait for. Just a woman in a foreign city. Finally vanishing into her own life. The first time I saw Luca Moretti, he was studying a painting like it might confess something to him. He stood completely still. No phone, no fidgeting, no pretending. Just him and the canvas. Like the rest of us were background noise. It unnerved me. Most men perform attention like a trick. Luca offered it like currency. When he turned to me, it wasn't dramatic. He just nodded like he already knew who I was. You're the American, he said. The one who paints women with their eyes closed. I raised an eyebrow. And you're the man who buys them? A small smile. I buy truth when I find it. And most people can't paint silence the way you do. He gestured toward one of my pieces. One Rosa had displayed in the back, tucked half behind a plant. A woman curled into herself. Hands open. Eyes shut. A halo of broken light behind her. Luca stepped closer. She's not sleeping, he said. She's listening to everything that was never said. I stared at him. No one had ever described it that way. Most people asked if she was dead. He didn't try to charm me. Instead, he walked with me through the gallery, pausing in front of each piece I'd touched. Rosa hovered nearby, watching like a smug ant. I'd like to acquire 3, he said at the end, and commission a 4th. For a private collection, he said, and eventually a feature exhibit. Your work speaks. To what? He held my gaze. To people who lost things they weren't allowed to mourn. I froze. Dean. My cousin. My ring. My name. I cleared my throat. Do all collectors use poetry as payment? Only when the artist needs it more than money. I hated that he was right, so I rolled my eyes. You're lucky I'm too poor to be offended. He smiled again. I'll have my assistant send the paperwork. And just like that he turned to leave. But before he reached the door he said, Madison, right? I blinked. How? Rosa talks, he said. Especially after wine. Of course. He glanced over his shoulder one last time. I don't know what you left behind, he said. But whatever it was, it clearly didn't deserve to stay. Then he was gone. And for a moment the air felt warmer. Nina barged into the gallery 20 minutes later. I just passed Luca Moretti on the bridge, she hissed. Did you flirt with him? Lie to me gently. I spoke to him. Briefly. She looked at me like I'd kissed the Pope. Madison. That man collects two things, $1 million art, and women who don't fall for him. I'm not interested. Exactly. That's why you're doomed. I shoved her playfully. I'm not dating anyone. Especially not someone who wears cufflinks before noon. Whatever you say. But if he invites you to Lake Como, I want pictures and a souvenir espresso cup. Later that night I tried to paint, but every time I touched the brush I saw Luca's eyes. Dark. So, like someone who could burn you with silence alone. He didn't want anything from me. Not attention. Not apology. Not validation. Just the truth. And that was terrifying. Because Dean wanted me soft. Forgiving. Silent. Luca just wanted me real. The next morning Rosa slapped a letter on my desk. Commission contract, she said. Luca's team sent it. I flipped through it. Clean. Direct. No frills. At the bottom a handwritten note. Create what only you can. Don't think about me while you do it. Or do. Your call. Oh. I snorted. Cucky. Subtle. Dangerous. Nina peeked over my shoulder. This is how Netflix thrillers start. This is how healing starts, I whispered, surprising even myself. Because for the first time since I left the country, someone didn't ask for my story. They just gave me space to paint the next chapter. I didn't post the photo. Someone else did. A gallery intern from Luca's team had taken it at a curated event. I was standing near a sculpture talking to him. He was listening, smiling slightly, like I'd just said something worth framing. We weren't even touching. But in that frame there was something far more dangerous than affection. Ease. Dean never looked at me like that. Not when we lived together. Not when I wore a dress he said he liked. Not even when I said I loved him. The photo got tagged. Then reshared. Then circulated, slowly across little corners of the art world. And somehow, it found Camila. Nina broke the news over coffee. She's stalking your Instagram again. I blinked. How do you know? She accidentally liked a post from 2 months ago and then unliked it within 6 seconds. Amateur. I didn't say anything. I just took a long sip of espresso. She's spiraling, Nina said with a grin. If I had popcorn I'd microwave it. Back in the States the unraveling began. Camila's posts got more desperate. More curated. He tagged Dean in everything. Posted throwback photos. Wrote captions like, "Some people chase art. Others build love. Guess which lasts longer? Ring kiss mark #forevers. And then another. It's not about the view. It's about who's watching you bloom." Attached to a very filtered photo of herself in a white silk dress. Imitating the outfit I'd worn in Venice. It was like watching a woman slowly copy-paste herself into someone else's life. Badly. Dean apparently wasn't impressed. He noticed the shift. The performative sweetness. The perfume that suddenly changed. The artwork she hung in their apartment. One that looked eerily like something I'd once painted. At first he ignored it. Then one day she played Luca's interview on her phone. Loudly. An art segment where he talked about emotional texture and honesty in grief. The interviewer had mentioned me by name. Camila had smiled like it was casual. Dean had snapped. "Why are you obsessed with her?" She'd gone still. "I'm not." "You're copying her." "No, I'm just inspired." He shook his head. "You don't love me. You love that I once loved her." Camila's mask cracked. "She left," she hissed. "She ran. And I stayed. I stayed through your silence, through your rebound, through your family." "That's the problem," he said quietly. "You stayed. She didn't have to." Meanwhile, I was in Luca's car headed to a gallery in Milan. He was quiet beside me, fingers tapping softly on the leather wheel. "You're thinking loudly," I said. He smiled. "About your cousin. I didn't mention her." "You didn't have to. You get tense whenever your past echoes through the room." I exhaled. "She wants to be me." "Don't flatter her," he said. She wants what's looking at you. He turned his head, met my eyes. Freedom. I stared out the window. What if she ruins what I built? He chuckled. She can imitate your pose. Never your piece. That night I posted something. Just one story. A photo of a white rose resting on a weathered stone windowsill. Caption. Some things bloom quietly. And still take root deeper than noise ever could. I didn't tag anyone. Didn't mention names. Didn't gloat. But Camila saw it. And Dean did too. Because sometimes revenge doesn't scream. Sometimes it just exists. Louder than silence. Softer than regret. There's something eerie about desperation dressed in lace. Camila had always been the type to wear fragility like perfume. Light, sweet, carefully applied. But desperate women don't smell like roses. They reek of panic. Nina was the first to find out. She faked a pregnancy, she said over the phone, voice half laugh, half horror. Your cousin has officially entered telenovela territory. I paused mid-brushstroke. Repeat that. She told Dean she's pregnant. Sent him an ultrasound she found on Pinterest. Literally reverse image searched the thing. He confronted her. She broke down in a monologue so bad it deserves a Razzie. I sat back. What did he do? Packed a bag. Left. Just like that. No dramatic divorce. No screaming match. Just truth, dropped like a match on dry history. Back in Venice, I stood in the gallery watching Rosa hang my final painting. It was for the solo exhibit Luca had helped coordinate. She didn't ask what the piece meant. She just said, "You finally stopped bleeding into the canvas. You're speaking now." The title? Inheritance. A woman turning her back to a shattered mirror. Her reflection walking forward while her real self remained still. No blood. No tears. Just forward motion. Luca showed up quietly. Dressed in a black coat, no tie, hands in his pockets like always. He walked the gallery without saying much. Until he reached the last piece. He turned to me. You're ready. For. He shrugged. Closure. Or something better. I arched a brow. What's better than closure? Reinvention. Later that night, after the show ended and the guests left and the champagne ran out, we stood on the balcony of Rosa's loft, looking out over the canals. Luca poured me wine. Not red. Not white. Something golden and strange. Venetian. You've built something here, he said softly. It's beautiful. Temporary, I replied. He glanced at me. And what happens when you go back? To what? He stepped closer. To the world that once thought you could be replaced. The air shifted. Soft, charged, heavy without pressure. I don't owe them anything, I whispered. No, he said. But you owe yourself the final word. Back in the States, Camila was unraveling publicly. Her friends unfollowed her in waves. Her posts got fewer, her captions more bitter. She made a video, vaguely sad, vaguely poetic, standing in front of an easel trying to paint. I'm finding myself again, she said into the camera. The comments were brutal. Why do you look like her? This is Madison 2.0 and the software's glitching. Dean left, didn't he? She didn't reply. Neither did I. I didn't need to. She was unraveling in public. I had already healed in private. Dean tried one last time. He sent an email. I know I made the biggest mistake of my life. I thought you were safe. But you were the storm I needed and I chased still water instead. I read it. Twice. Then deleted it. Not out of cruelty. But because there was nothing left to say. I wasn't angry anymore. I was gone. The rain started around dusk. Venice glowed under the storm. Lanterns reflected in wet cobblestones. Shadows dancing across the canals like something from a dream. I stood by the window of the gallery, sipping tea that had long gone cold, watching the city exhale. Behind me I heard the familiar creak of the door. You always stand in windows like that, Luca said from behind. Like you're about to vanish into the mist. I smiled without turning. Maybe I am. He stepped closer, his voice lower now. I'd rather you didn't. I've grown used to finding you exactly where the light is best. I turned and raised a brow. Was that supposed to be romantic or just a gallery compliment? He smirked. Yes. He walked over, leaned beside me at the window, hands in his coat pockets. I hear storms make people do dramatic things, he said. Confess secrets. Kiss strangers. Flee cities. Well, I said, sipping again, I've already done 2 of those. Can't say which. He gave me that look. The half-teasing, half-reading your soul one that made it hard to breathe. We're leaving in 3 days to New York, he said quietly. For the exhibition. He nodded. And then, I don't know. He tilted his head. Should I start preparing emotionally? Or just cancel your return flight and claim it was a travel glitch? I laughed. That might actually work. I once missed a flight because my airline thought I didn't exist. He grinned. I would have believed that once. You barely existed when you first walked in here. I turned to face him fully. I existed. I just didn't take up space. His eyes softened. You take up space now. And I like watching the world shift around you because of it. We stood there in silence for a moment, just watching the rain. Then he said, if you don't want to come back, I'll survive. I arched a brow. That's not very romantic. He stepped just a little closer, not touching, just near enough that I could feel the shift in the air. But if you do come back with me. His voice dropped to a whisper. I'll take you to the island with the lavender fields. I'll show you the bakery that makes lemon tarts so good they make grown men cry. And I'll stop pretending I haven't been waiting for you to look at me the way you look at your brushstrokes. My breath caught. I looked at him for a long moment. And then finally I said, if I come back, it won't be for lemon tarts. His smile curved slowly. I know. The storm picked up. A crack of thunder echoed in the sky. But between us it was calm. Warm. Undeniable. We said nothing more. Because sometimes, love doesn't begin with declarations or kisses. Sometimes, it blooms in glances held too long, in jokes that mean more than they should, and in the way 2 people stand near enough to touch. But don't. Not yet. I returned home exactly 1 year after I left. Not because I missed it, but because I no longer feared it. My art exhibit was being shown at the Metropolitan Satellite in Manhattan, one of Luca's acquisitions. Rosa had framed the invite like a trophy. Nina cried when she read the press release. Madison Cole, the woman who painted her silence. I boarded the flight in a white pantsuit. Hair pinned. Lips soft coral. No baggage but carry-on. Not a metaphor. Little. I didn't bring any weight from that life back with me. Just the woman I had become. The gallery was flooded with people. Critics. Collectors. Writers who used words like visceral and haunting too often. And somewhere in the middle of it all, Luca. In his black-on-black suit, standing in the corner like a storm that had learned how to be calm. He didn't hover. He just watched. Proud. So present. A steady flame behind the glass. Camila arrived late. She didn't know I was back until she saw my face on the exhibit brochure. Nina sent me a screenshot of her shocked Instagram story. This can't be real. Oh, but it was. She came with 2 friends, dressed in designer desperation. Red lips. Tight dress. Matching mask of confidence. She didn't greet me. Didn't have to. Her eyes did all the screaming. Dean walked in next. He looked older. Not in years. But in weight. The kind you carry when you finally realize what you lost and that it's never coming back. He didn't walk toward me. He just stared. At the canvases. At the titles. At the crowds around me. And at the man standing beside me. Luca offered him nothing. Not even a nod. That's what made it worse. There was a painting in the center of the exhibit. A woman in a white dress standing in front of a wedding arch. But the altar was empty. And behind her, a mirror, showing her walking away barefoot holding a bouquet of thorns. Title: The Bride Who Buried Her Own Ending. The room was silent in front of it. He knew. So did Camila. I turned once. Met Dean's eyes. He looked like he wanted to say something. But I turned away. And Luca reached for my hand, not possessively. Just as an anchor. A promise. Feck. I let him. Because in that moment I wasn't afraid of being touched anymore. Not when the hand that held mine didn't demand anything. After the show, a journalist pulled me aside. Madison, how does it feel to be back? I smiled. I'm not back. I'm just visible now. She laughed like it was poetic. Wrote it down like it was a headline. But it wasn't a performance. It was the truth. I didn't come back to reclaim anything. I came back to remind the world that I never needed their permission to become unforgettable. Camila left early. Dean stayed longer. Long enough to watch the lights go dim. I didn't speak to either of them. Because sometimes the most powerful thing you can say is, "You don't get access to this version of me." Later that night, Luca poured us wine in our hotel suite. He didn't toast. Didn't praise. He just looked at me and said, "You finally arrived." And for once I believed it. Because I didn't feel like a woman who had been replaced. I felt like the one they could never recreate. The letter arrived a week after I flew back to Venice. No name on the envelope. Just handwriting I knew too well. Slanted, rushed, halfway between confident and careless. Dean. I stared at it for a full hour. Luca didn't ask. He saw it in my hand and simply said, "You can burn it. Or read it. Either way, it doesn't get to own you." I read it. Not because I needed answers. But because I already knew I didn't. Madison. I don't know how to begin this without sounding like a cliché. Maybe I am a cliché. The man who let go of gold for glass. Who thought comfort was love and convenience was loyalty. The truth? I saw you slipping away and I let you. Not because I didn't love you, but because I thought you'd never actually leave. I thought you were safe. Soft. Steady. I didn't see that you were also wildfire. Camila was easy. You were real. And now I watch you from the sidelines, standing beside someone who doesn't just love you, but respects your silence. I don't expect forgiveness. I just needed to say this even if you never write back. You were never my backup. You were the whole damn plan. I just read the map upside down. Ding. I folded the letter once. Set it inside a drawer. Didn't cry. Because closure isn't about hearing them admit they were wrong. It's about knowing you don't need to carry the weight of their regret anymore. I didn't feel satisfaction. Just peace. The kind that comes when a fire finally burns out. Smoke curling into a sky that no longer threatens rain. The next day, Rosa found me sitting on the dock with my sketchbook. "I heard from Milan," she said. "They want another exhibit." I looked up. "Of the same pieces?" "No. They want you. Whatever you create next. No ghosts attached." She handed me a blank canvas. "You done writing with grief?" she asked. I thought for a second. "No. But I've started writing with joy." She smiled. "About time." Weeks passed. Camila posted less. Dean disappeared from social circles. But I didn't look anymore. Because healing doesn't live in their downfall. It lives in the way you water your own garden after they burn down your forest. One morning, Luca asked if I'd ever consider returning to the States. "To live?" he asked. I smiled. "To visit. I like who I am here." He leaned in. "I love who you are everywhere." And just like that I knew. This wasn't a rebound. Wasn't a fairy tale. It was real. Patient. Earned. The kind of love that holds you without needing to rewrite you. It was late. The gallery had closed for the night, but I remained, barefoot on the paint-stained floor, the last wineglass untouched, a candle flickering in the corner. My newest piece hung behind me, still drying. A woman in full bloom. No mirror. No shadows. Just light. "You forget time when you paint," Luca said from the doorway. I turned slowly. He was leaning against the frame, shirt sleeves rolled, his collar open just enough to feel intimate. Like the day didn't end until he touched me. "And you always show up the moment I realize I'm lonely," I replied. He stepped forward, voice quiet. "That's because I never really leave." He crossed the room in silence and stopped just in front of me. "I watched you disappear once," he whispered. "Not from me, but from the world. From yourself." He raised his hand and tucked a stray curl behind my ear. His fingers lingered, soft at first, then more certain. "But now," he said, brushing my cheek, "you're fully here. And I'm running out of reasons not to touch you." My breath caught. I didn't stop him. Because his hands weren't taking. They were offering. He kissed me like a promise he'd never dared to say out loud. So, no performance, only presence. My arms wrapped around his shoulders, and for the first time in years, I wasn't bracing for disappointment. I was leaning into devotion. "I wanted you the moment I saw your first painting," he murmured against my collarbone. "But I waited. Because I needed you to want you first." I pulled his face to mine again. "I want you now," I whispered. "Completely. Fully. Wildly." His smile turned into another kiss, this one hungrier. His lips trailed to my jaw, my throat, the edge of my shoulder where my dress slipped slightly down. Passion didn't erupt. It unfolded. Patient and certain, like it had waited its entire life for permission. And I gave it. All of it. Later we lay tangled on the floor, surrounded by paint tubes and sketches and the distant sound of gondolas moving through the night canals. "You scare me," I murmured, fingers tracing his chest. He looked over. "Why?" "Because this feels like home. And I forgot what home could feel like." He sat up, pulled something from the inside pocket of his coat. A box. Simple. But no brand. He held it out without flourish. No kneeling. No speech. Just Luca. "So, sure. Then let's never make you feel lost again." I opened it. The ring was unlike any I'd ever shown to Dean. No halo. No perfect cut diamond. Just a gold band with a raw emerald stone, flawed, unique, like something pulled from the ocean floor. "I didn't buy you a diamond," he said. "I wanted something that looked like you, unpolished, powerful, irreplaceable." I teared up. He cupped my face again. "Will you build a life with me not because I saved you, but because I never needed you to be anyone else?" My answer wasn't just yes. It was everything that had ever been stolen from me, returned in one word. Yes. We married quietly. By the water. With a violinist. With Rosa crying and Nina wearing something wildly inappropriate. With no one from my past. Only people who had loved me through my becoming. Luca held my hand as we walked back down the stone steps of the old Venetian church. No rice. No cameras. Just rain beginning to fall in gentle silver strands. "You look like poetry when you're happy," he whispered. And I smiled. Because I finally was. The end.